Hi, thanks for joining me today. It's Lorraine Moore of Accelerate Success Group, and I want to share with you the lessons that I learned while in the desert, lessons on leadership and lessons on life. I've spent many years in leadership positions, coaching and mentoring a variety of people, in formal leadership and executive roles, and as well as a coach and consultant. I've attended many conferences and business schools and keep abreast of readings in magazines and the Wall Street Journal. And I discovered or rediscovered some important lessons about leadership while attending the Burning Man Festival. For those of you not familiar with Burning Man, it is an experimental community, a city that arises out of the desert for a week every year, now in Nevada. It was the 25th anniversary of this festival when we attended in 2011. 50,000 people camped out in their tents and RVs with incredible art and mutant art vehicles, bikes everywhere in the desert, because that was one of the only modes of transportation, so tens of thousands of bikes. A most unusual place to learn about leadership and life. I was reminded of a number of things attending Burning Man. It was a life-affirming and in some ways life-changing experience. There's 5 lessons that I'm going to talk about today and share with you what I learned in the desert. Well, one of the first reminders, and certainly a visible one, was that we so often make assessments and judgments of people based on how they look. And when you get out of the business environment, well, it was a reminder that dress does not make the man or the woman. Did your mother ever tell you that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover? Without convention, stereotypes fall away. Anyone can wear skirts, long feather earrings, boots, leg warmers, body paint. And at the Burning Man Festival, there was no distinguishing between young, old, male, female, gender, religion. Everybody dressed uniquely, really to their own drummer, to their own desire and flair and interest and fun. And of course, when we're away from the workforce and away from the offices and the boardrooms, no one's wearing ties or pantyhose or suits. That's a construct of our business environment. Common dress helps us understand and know where to fit in and where others fit in, but it's amazing what creativity people have when you remove the constraints of our stereotypes. How often do we consider compensation as a motivator and an incentive for people, for ourselves and for our employees and for those that work around us? Well, at Burning Man, I was reminded that it's not really compensation and pay that inspires people, that motivates people. There were tens of thousands of volunteers, many of them using their own professional skills to prepare food, style hair, lead workshops, or their talents and their leisure time activities. They weren't there getting paid. Many people, tens of thousands of people, had given up their vacation. Sometimes they only have limited vacation allotment, but they were using that holiday time and working, providing service for others because they were doing what they loved. It was a reminder that the more we can assign our employees to the work that they love and to the things that they're passionate about, give people the opportunity to work on something that is aligned to their strengths, that's when people perform the best, and payment has little to do with it. What about you? How are you spending your time? Are you working on activities that are aligned to your strengths and your passions? Everyone has an inherent desire to contribute. while we think about retirement involving days on end at the beach with a cold drink by our side or hours on the golf course. In fact, for most of us, simply filling our days with leisure activity and no purpose leaves us pretty empty. And at Burning Man, there were tens of thousands of volunteers supporting over 50,000 attendees in a rough environment. Some of them were there for 2 weeks. No water source, you had to bring in your own. Hot days, cold nights, wind, dust storms. What did people do to contribute? As simple as providing slices of fresh watermelon to those of us who were cycling by, sharing Italian cocktails, providing snacks, giving away free CDs from their fiddling band, food, shelter for people out of the wind. A small contribution makes a big difference. When I visited the temple at Burning Man, I interacted with people from all different religious backgrounds, ethnicities, and cultures. As I wandered through this reverent, quiet place, I read the writing on the walls and reflected on the messages there. People had noted about forgiveness, release, sadness, anger, and there was triumph and victory over challenges that have been presented to people. Faith, the most overriding and common message that resounded through the words I read and the eye contact with people, was love. From underneath the trees, we watch the sky, confusing stars, the satellite. So that's one of the real joys that I took away from Burning Man. When I'm interacting with people in a business environment or in an environment outside of work, to remember that the person presenting themselves, that there's more to them. There's more going on there, and before I make assessments and judgments about their motives and what's going on behind the scenes, take the time to look deeper and get to know their story, if possible. There have been many books written about motivation, dealing with conflict, leadership, how to get people to follow. And there's some real value in those books. But there's a lot more fun in spending time with people, seeking to understand and seeking to be maybe a bit more understood yourself. So thanks for taking the time to listen to this and to share in some of what I learned about leadership and about life in a different setting. So next time you're interacting with someone and you start to think you know exactly where they're coming from, or you realize that you're making assessments and judgments, remember that we each have a story, and it's important to look below the surface and below what's obvious. Ask questions and be kind. Show compassion and look deeper. And lastly, thank you to the photographers and the artists who've been featured here, as well as to the entire community of Burning Man, who made it such a life-affirming experience for us.